Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to the Bucketheads live stream. Woo! Yeah, you didn't know I was introing like that.
Please never do that again.
Oh, come on. Hey, I'm Andy Brown.
And I'm Marco Basso.
And we are Transmute Pictures.
Welcome back to our live stream. We've been off the air for 2 weeks because we were working on another very exciting project. And we're here to fill you in on what we've been doing and what the plan is for Bucketheads Episode 1, which is actually moving ahead now.
Yes. Really quickly before we jump into that, as always, we're giving you guys these wonderful updates and doing everything we can to keep you guys entertained and filled in on the projects that we're working on. If you're interested in what we're doing, you like the things that we put out there and want to see us continue and help support the projects, you can check out our Patreon. The link, I believe, is below. No, is it? Oh, it's up there.
The actual link is in the box below the video.
Man, I always get confused at this.
How does YouTube work?
It's both ways. Anyways, check out the link below the video in the description. It'll lead right to our Patreon, and if you're in a position to give, that would be wonderful. It helps us create the content, get it to you faster, and just make it better.
Exactly. Now let's talk about what we've been doing in the past 2 weeks without the live stream. If you are following us on Instagram, which I would highly recommend, we posted some stills from the project we shot 2 weeks ago called Tales from the 501st Checkpoint.
Yeah. So this was a project that was inspired by The Mandalorian. Spoilers, it's been out for a while. There are some very fun scout troopers that we see in The Mandalorian, and this kind of inspired us to create something very similar. We also absolutely adore what The Mandalorian is doing with virtual production and how they're creating it. So this was really our first experience with that and an opportunity for us to test that technology ourselves. We're very fortunate that we have access to a lot of the things to be able to do this. Some of it is very accessible for everyone, and other parts like getting these massive LED walls can be a bit tricky. But we have some very cool friends over at Promosa who helped support us in that sense and have been working with us to provide us these LED walls and technicians to help us with 3D pipeline and stuff. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, it was a super valuable experience, and we will definitely take what we've learned to the Buckethead series to bring you even more polished looking content. Essentially what we did with Checkpoint is it's set in the desert on Tatooine during A New Hope. And up here in Vancouver, BC, we have every possible nature configuration except for desert. So
there's a tiny bit,
yeah.
As many people have pointed out to us, and I mean we could have gone as far as Tofino, which is on the island, and there is some more sort of rolling sand dunes up there, but
they're nowhere near as big as we really wanted them to be.
And that was the problem, is that nothing we found was as big as we wanted it to be. There wasn't sort of the distance there, and everything we looked at was like you got one scoped in area of sand and then a bunch of shrubbery and things. And as I'm sure everybody watching knows, Tatooine doesn't have a lot of shrubbery.
Correct. So we turned to virtual production. We were very much inspired by the groundbreaking technology that is on display in The Mandalorian. And what they did was they created virtual environments in Unreal Engine 4, which most of you probably know from video gaming. That's exactly where it came from. Now, we don't have exactly those resources, and...
well, we didn't.
We
Yes.
We do now, but at the time, we didn't have enough environmental artists to really build a massive desert environment that we needed. So instead, what we did is we went down to Portland, Oregon, and shot reference plates in the Oregon sand dunes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was quite an experience in itself. This was just before the whole pandemic and everything got crazy, so there was a bit of a time crunch on it, and it was a crazy trip. But we did manage to shoot these plates, and then that's where the LED walls came into play. Again, what we wanted to do was use video game engines like Unreal 4 and build a 3D environment, because that allows you to create what's called parallax. Parallax is seeing the distance between two objects, right? So you have one object very far in the distance, one object in the foreground. As your camera moves left and right, you can see the objects sort of changing their perspective. That's parallax.
Yeah.
What shooting plate shots and then putting them on these LED walls does is it still looks excellent, but you don't get the parallax, right? Because that's a flat two-dimensional image being projected on a wall now. So those were some of the constraints that we had. We really did want to explore using Unreal Engine and whatnot, but again, we just didn't have the availability. Marco and I love to play video games, but we don't have the same skill set in building video games. So that's something we want to be better at and incorporate more in Bucketheads, the series, and that's why we tried to test this out with Tales from the 501st, because we really want to know everything going into Bucketheads and make sure that we're giving you guys that level of quality that we talked about. That's really something where it's important to us, I suppose.
So if any Unreal environmental artists are watching, and if you know any environmental artists, please get in touch. We can always use more help in that sector.
Yes. We also learned a ton. I'm sure we could honestly do our own little video or something like that about working with the LED walls and how interesting that was. There's a principle when you're talking about camera sensors and cameras called Moir, and that is something that affects sensors with very fine patterning, which is what these LED walls are, right? They're very fine patterns of LEDs that produce images for you. So that was another thing that we had to kind of watch out for. There was a whole ton of very cool technical things that we learned on it.
Yeah. And for Bucketheads in particular, what we're looking at doing with that technology is essentially set extensions. So when we build a corridor of a Star Destroyer, we're going to build the first 5 or 6 sections, and then deep in the background, we're just going to put in an LED wall. And with camera tracking, the way if you go right or left, the background is going to shift accordingly and create that illusion of a hallway that is 10 times as long as it actually is.
And so to me, this was sort of the harder thing to conceptualize. And I mean, I'm even a camera guy and I work around cameras all the time and I play a lot of video games, so it helped. But as Marco just said, camera tracking, that's a big part of this, a big part of what Disney did with The Mandalorian that was so interesting, and where the video game engines make the difference versus just shooting a standard plate shot. If you use a motion tracker with your camera is able to capture your actor who would be dressed in a regular costume. Maybe you have some props in front of this LED wall that really sell the environment. So your camera is tracking those, or is capturing those as you would on a regular set. But then if you have a tracker on top that is tied into a virtual camera that's in your video game engine, your video game world, and it's moving at the same time as your real camera, that's where the background, if it's in a three-dimensional space, you get that parallax, right? You can be looking down a hallway and then pan over into a different room, and you can see the entire background shift as it would accordingly to real life. Versus again, if you're looking at a plate shot, your plate shot doesn't move. It is just your recorded image of looking down a hallway.
Yeah, and funny enough, the most common trackers used are usually virtual reality headsets that anyone can buy, like the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift.
Yeah. So again, if there's any Unreal Engine artists or anyone who knows anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff, please reach out to us. We're always happy to collaborate with new individuals. I think right above myself here, we've got our email there. So if you guys do want to reach out, info@transmutepictures.com.
Yeah, I think that was a nice little tech dump for everyone who's interested in that. But let's move on. What else is there left to do for Checkpoint?
So we have one more day of, it's not even additional photography, it's pickups. We already knew this was coming. We weren't able to capture everything in studio just because of some technical limitations. So we've got one more day next weekend. We won't be doing a live stream next weekend again because we're going to be shooting. So everyone is aware of that. And then we just got to piece it together and color it and make it good. The
nice thing about the way we shot it is that there's very little to do in terms of visual effects. A little bit of blastifier and some touch-ups, but we don't. If we would have shot this on green screen like we shot the Bucketheads season 1 teaser back in November, that would be, again, weeks if not months of work. And this way we got everything in camera. So we hope to be able to release Checkpoint sometime later in August. We can't promise an exact date yet, but that's realistic.
And that's the other thing that virtual production really does, and why we want to use it. When we created the original Bucketheads, there was something like 50 to 60 visual effect shots. If you can capture those in camera, you can design a world, even if you have, let's say, a blaster fight, and you have a blaster fight going on in the background. That's things you don't have to create later in post. it just really saves you a lot of time if you can do them in pre-production and again capture it all in camera. So yeah, we're really hoping that Checkpoint won't take us that long to polish up. And again, hoping this technology is going to help us in creating Bucketheads and getting that out faster for you guys.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bucketheads. Transition. So, first of all, thank you to all our patrons who have donated so far. We've been able to meet sort of the goal that we need to make the first part of episode 1 happen. This part is set on Endor. It's about the first, I want to say, 6-ish minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
And we're looking at actually shooting this now at the beginning of September.
Yes.
Probably 3 days. We're going to go back to the forest moon of Endor.
It's going to be great. Honestly, it's going to be a very, very fun sequence to shoot. And I think you guys will have a blast watching it.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be the comments of like, oh, here we go again. Another fan film set in the forest. This is only the first part of the first episode. We really do want to get to the point where we're able to create these full episodes for you guys, but it is just really intrinsically intertwined with the Patreon and how much we're able to, how much support we're able to generate from the fandom. So
that being said, we are going back to the forest, but looking at what we learned with the short film and now also with Checkpoint and every other film we've made in between, because we actually don't only make Star Wars films.
No. But we love doing that.
We do. Essentially, it's going to be like the big fight sequence from the short times 10. Like, we're shooting on private land where we can blow stuff up, we can set stuff on fire, we have smoke effects, we have stunts, we have major rigging. It's going to be pretty wild.
It's going to be a blast, yeah.
Yeah.
I had something else to say about it, and now it's entirely...
The other thing that we have this time is tons and tons of background and extras, which is what we're working on right now. Stormtroopers and, of course, Rebels.
And the other thing is that I know a lot of people had commented that they enjoyed, the action sequence that we'd thrown together for the original Bucketheads, but had hoped that we had a military advisor. Totally hear them, totally understand it. It was a point of learning for Marco and myself, and we have attached a military advisor now to ourselves. So we do have someone who's looked through our scenes and looked through sort of what's going on and will be with us on the day to help advise us so that it looks the most realistic. Because that was the whole point of creating this, right? A true military, that's what the Stormtroopers are. They should know military tactics. They should be competent. And we've never been in the military, so we need someone to come tell us how that looks.
Yeah, no, our advisor is legit. He's an ex-US Marine who now lives up here in Canada and is also very, very into Star Wars. So it's a perfect crossover in that way.
Yes. So that's what Marco and I have really been working on alongside the rest of the team for Bucketheads. There's a huge team that we work with. But really just getting things ready for the Endor sequence. We are creating... Rebel, why am I blanking? Endor Commandos. So that's sorry, right. I'm blanking on this. Endor Commandos. We're working on some extra Stormtrooper stuff. We might even have some Ewoks that are being...
we definitely have some Ewoks.
Worked on.
It's not Endor without Ewoks.
Yeah, it's true.
And they're fluffy and cute, but not all of them are going to make it, I'm afraid.
And I mean, we've mentioned this a few times, but we've also really... upped the scale on our visual effects team, so there's going to be some really cool visual effects stuff going on as well.
Oh yeah, the opening is going to be nuts.
Yes.
It's going to be nuts.
Yes.
Totally nuts.
It sounds like it's going to be nuts. So that's what we've been working on. We still very much want to get the droid team to come talk on the live stream. That's been another really big... point of production so far, and what we've been working on is building this brand new droid for us to work into Nova Squad.
And I believe this week they're actually starting the process of physically building it. Like, we've had tons of tests and motion studies done. Aaron has 3D printed most of the internal mechanics that are going to make it move, turn, open up. All the cool stuff that we talked about when we had them on, 4 weeks ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Like that is all happening, and the building is actually going to be probably a fairly quick process, a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. Otherwise, honestly, it's a lot of working on the virtual production things. This is just really a brand new. It's not a brand new sphere of production, but
For us, it is.
well, for us it is, and also just the way it's incorporating prosumer things like Unreal
Yeah.
Engine 4, because so many people have access to use that. It's just not everybody can use it to the same level as
Unreal Engine 4 is free.
It's free. Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
literally anybody can download this and start playing with the asset packs and things and designing. So yeah, that's really been a big point of what we're trying to do, because that's going to make this go faster and allow us to broaden our scope, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. We saw a question very early on in the stream
yes.
that we wanted to address, because it's come up a few times.
So Chris Snyder, if you're still here, we're here to answer your question. And the question is, and we've seen this as a comment as well, I don't know if it was Chris as well or somebody else, but if it's from the troopers' point of view, then why is it called Bucketheads? They never called themselves that. In fact, it was used as a derogatory term.
The better one, and again, I don't know if this was Chris that also commented somewhere else, but somebody said basically the same thing, and then they said, like, the show Cops isn't called the show Pigs, which makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Pigs is the
yeah.
derogatory term. I get it. I think, so originally this was sort of a play on words in the same sense as Jarhead is another military film that doesn't always explore or romanticize war. It sort of gets into the nitty gritty of what, I believe that one was about Afghanistan and what the U.S. military was doing there, and just, you know, how it affected soldiers' lives and
Yeah.
whether it was worth what they were doing. So we kind of chose it for the same sense. Marco and I have talked a number of times, you know, on the live stream even, about how we're not here to change what Star Wars is. We're not looking at making the Empire the good guys. We're looking at portraying a story from the Empire and just telling it for what it is.
The big difference is we're not Cops, because Cops is very much a propaganda show. And we're looking at Star Wars from the perspective of the Imperials.
We release a lot of propaganda.
We do, but it's not a propaganda show. Like we very much want to explore the gray in Star Wars, and that includes the good and bad on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jarhead was very much our inspiration for naming it Bucketheads.
Don't take it so literally.
Yeah, it's just a title.
It's just a title. Yeah.
All right.
Fun fact, it was actually just the working title when we came up with it, because we had nothing. Well, there was one name before Bucketheads, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, it was even worse. It was Pawns.
Pawns, yeah, it was super bad. Pawns. I don't know, I wasn't cool with it, so we went to Bucketheads because we thought that was a fun term, and then we just, I don't know, it stuck. We ended up liking it.
And then hundreds of people were like, I thought it's a comedy.
Yes. So, sorry to disappoint.
Titles are very, very hard.
Yeah, I guess so.
But it's Bucketheads now. You
It's
can't change it.
Bucketheads.
It's too late. We just went with it.
I'm just looking through here to see if we have any other questions. It looks like not so much today, which is okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, this was going to be a relatively short live stream for you guys. We just wanted to, you know, update you as much as possible and tell you what's going on. The major announcements, I know we've talked about it again, but really just to make sure that everyone's aware that we will be releasing the first part of episode 1 and that we're getting up to shooting that in September. There was another actually part to this we wanted to mention. So for the patrons, there are physical rewards, as we've always declared on the Patreon. We have, I believe, described it as for every release, we're going to be sending out a goodie box. Now that we've broken up episode 1 into, well, we don't really know how many parts. It's really tied into the Patreon, and if the Patreon continues to grow, we'll continue to create more and bigger chunks until we can do full episodes. For now, with that part 1 of Ep 1 release, that's when we'll be sending out the first physical goodie bags to the patrons. So they can be expecting that. The second physical goodie bag is not going to come out until part 1 of episode 2, or if we could do it at the time, the entirety of episode 2. But whenever we dive into episode 2. So there's not going to be a release for every single part of episode 1. It's just one at the start.
Very well said, my friend.
Was it? I think it was a bit convoluted, but I hope everybody understood.
Yeah, other than that, I think we can just briefly mention right after this live stream, we're going to go to our Endo location to do a technical scout.
Yeah.
We are going to figure out where all of our set pieces are going to take place, where stuff like explosives charges is going to go, where the shield generator is going to go, where a bunker is going to go, where people are going to get strung up on trees. Lots of elements to sort of figure out where exactly they're going to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I have. Have you seen, I'm sure everyone here has seen too, I just wanted to quickly mention it, what is it, Star Wars The Bad Batch?
You mean the Clone Wars episode or the upcoming series?
No, the upcoming series.
About the Bad Batch.
Yes. I think it's called The Bad Batch.
It is called The Bad Batch.
Oh, man. I just thought I would mention that because that's another cool... We're always trying to do the thing from the Stormtroopers' perspective, and this one's from the Clone Troopers, but it's in such a cool time because it's finally trying to bridge that gap between when did the clones stop being around and when did we start getting regular soldiers.
Honestly, quick tangent. Before we got started on Bucketheads, my original idea was actually telling a story from the clones' perspective. But turns out clones are even harder to portray than stormtroopers, and also Dave Filoni was doing such an excellent job with the Clone Wars series that it just felt kind of cheap to go off of that, and instead we then decided to create our own original story with stormtroopers instead of clones. That being said, for Tales from the 501st, which started as a clone regiment, we're definitely going to dive into clones eventually.
Yes. We've got some really cool stories lined up for Tales from the 501st. Not all of them are exactly focused in on 501st members. We've got one that's a really funny idea that I think we will absolutely tackle at some point. And they're all going to include 501st members at some point, but they may not necessarily be the antagonists or protagonists.
Any diversions are going to be worth it.
Yes. Just so people are aware. But we've got some really fun ideas for that, and this should just be really cool sort of filler content while you guys are waiting for the bigger Bucketheads episodes.
Yeah. Basically, we never want to stop creating content for you guys. It's just so much fun.
It's so much fun. I think that's about all we have today, my friend. Again, it's a bit of a shorter live stream, but we won't continue rambling on, and everyone can go and enjoy their Sunday.
Any more questions? You have 10 more seconds to ask them, and we will address them.
10 seconds.
9.
Okay, we don't need to count this down. This is
8.
embarrassing.
I can't. This is hard.
Oh, jeez. I like how we're each wearing a different Bucketheads. I don't think we've done this since the start.
You're all over the place with your shirts. I always wear a different version of the Nova Squad shirt. It's not always the same one. I have like 5 of them.
I like to support many different things and artists, and that's the way that I am. All right, I think...
It looks like there's no questions. Darth Vader just says,
I think that's it for today's live stream. Thank you guys so much again for joining us. If you do want to help support the project, again, we have the Patreon link below. Oh my gosh, I can never do this correctly. Below in the video description, so please jump on over there. You can see all the cool digital goodies we're curating that are immediately accessible, and then also some physical stuff that we'll be sending out really in the next few months here.
And that's that.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. You guys enjoy your Sundays. I'm Andy Brown.
I'm Marco Basso.
And this is Buckethead signing off.
See you in probably 2 weeks.